Yes, sir.
How we living?
What's up, dude? I'm good. I am at Timmel Coffee Shop. I'm drinking a decaf this morning. This early afternoon, I should say.
Okay.
Early
Is it because
afternoon.
you didn't get the best sleep, or is it because it's a little bit
N-
later in the day?
No, no, no. This is a decaf, not caffeinated. So just out of the fact that you have to order something when you go to the coffee shop. To
Yeah.
be
Well, because I remember you
honest.
said if you didn't get the best sleep, you wouldn't get caffeine because you would be a little bit jittery.
Right, right, right. So this is decaf, so not caffeinated.
Right, right. But that's why I was wondering if you didn't get the best sleep last
Okay,
night.
okay.
You know what I mean? Because because that's caffeinated, right? You got caffeinated?
No, no. Oh, so how's it
That's
going?
good. That's good. Yeah, you do have to get something. You do. That's
You
just how it goes.
you can't just sit there. So I was thinking about it today actually, because if you go to a coffee shop in the morning, for example, if you live a privileged lifestyle like I do, where you can go to a coffee shop in the morning and in the afternoon, that's two, and you go to a different one, you get lunch maybe in the middle, that's two coffee shops. In
Yeah.
Paris, you're looking at 6 to 7 euros right there for the day.
Yeah.
So it can add up. In the US, you're looking at ice cream and latte. Yeah, you're twice. Yeah, no,
Oh yeah.
yeah,
It definitely could add up. And I'm only going once a week on the weekend.
you're going once a week on the weekend. Okay.
Yeah.
And what's your order? I don't know if that's your order.
Yeah. Lately I've been going black coffee, drip coffee.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, usually a large black drip.
Mm.
But my favorite type of coffee is a latte.
And so you treat yourself to a latte on a special occasion.
When's the last? I guess I don't even really think about it as something I have on special occasions, but it is my favorite type of coffee. I'll just say that. It is definitely my favorite type of coffee. Mary and I have a Breville. Well, it's hers, so it's in California. And when I was back there a couple weeks ago, I had made myself a latte, and oh my goodness, it's they are more bitter, or I guess they have like espresso has a distinct taste,
Mm.
almost to me a little bit more bitter. But yeah, with the milk, I mean, you got a lot of milk in your drink, and it's gonna be delicious.
It's gonna
You
be
know,
delicious,
it's gonna be
delicious.
amazing.
I've been eating. I don't know if you know what this is. I don't know how to pronounce it correctly. Kefir, kefir. It's like the mix between milk
Oh,
and
yeah.
yogurt. You know that?
Yeah, yeah.
How do you say it?
I've heard it pronounced as kefir, but
Kefir,
that's
kefir, kefir.
maybe a US pronunciation.
I have no idea, but I've been drinking that, eating that. This is like a weird consistency. Lately, this past week, in the morning, as a new to get my gut microbiome back to its ideal state. So
Yeah. Did
we'll
you
see.
did you listen to anything about the microbiome recently, or do you just know from knowledge that you've had from learning in the past?
I know from the past, I've listened to some Huberman stuff on the gut microbiome and the importance of it, but this recent inspiration was from the fact that because I was sick a couple weeks ago, and I hadn't been sick like 3 months prior, and then got sick again. I was like, okay, so if the gut microbiome needs to be, that means we need to go all hands on deck, and everything that I do would be to get that thing back up and running. But yeah, that thing is important. And I know you're looking at me like, yeah, that thing is important. Huh.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly don't know a ton about the microbiome. I did listen to an episode of The Drive. So that's Peter Tia's podcast. And that was with some type of microbiome specialist. And it's super interesting stuff. super interesting stuff. And it seemed as if there was a lot of research that wasn't maybe as rigorous as other studies or as other fields.
Mhm.
But I guess as of late, there has been some really good research. And yeah, there are some new supplements on the market that I guess are supposed to be really interesting. There was also the interesting thing about the GLP-1 production. This is the person I learned a little bit about GLP-1 production. So essentially she said everyone produces GLP, or I guess take what I say with a grain of salt because it's not going to be exact. I'm not a scientist here, not a PhD, not an MD, but in essence, everyone produces GLPs or GLP-1s, something like that. And for the people that produce have good production of GLPs, they know when they're full, they know how to regulate their appetite quite well. And the people that don't produce as much GLP ones, they have a hard time knowing when to stop eating. And so now you see the influx of Ozempic and Wegovy and all these GLP-1s that are on the market that are helping people not eat because essentially what happens when you have the GLP-1 medication, you no longer have the same appetite. I heard some anecdotes of couples that are quite overweight when they're on GLP-1s, they go to a dinner and they split one entree and they're full. They don't want anything else. They're actually full. And that's because they have this increased GLP-1 production. And I guess
Hmm.
it's somehow tangential to the microbiome because that's, from my understanding, because she kind of focuses on the microbiome and she's also figured that out too.
So essentially, what you're saying is that in most overweight people, and this is an overall paraphrase, in most overweight people, there's there is a lack of GLP-1s in that their body's producing, and so they take GLP-1s and they put GLP-1s in their body to replenish this scarcity of GLP-1, which then means their body is no longer needs as much calorie intake or nutrients to fulfill itself, essentially.
Yeah, to feel full, to
To feel
feel as if
full.
I'm done eating. And so I always joke that I have bad GLP-1 production because I always want to just eat, eat, eat. I feel as if I could just consume for eternity. But yeah, and then when someone has when I can tell someone just isn't always extremely hungry, I always make a comment. Or sometimes I make the comment, "Oh, you probably have good GLP-1 production."
Mm.
Like Mary, for example, and then some of my coworkers who one of my coworkers just misses dinner, frequently misses dinner. He's like, yeah, forgot to eat dinner last night. That one always stuns me.
That one
Oh,
does always sound. It's probably not as funny as it objectively is because there's something I'm sure behind that, but it is kind of funny when you think about it. It's like, yeah, I
well,
just forgot.
when
Oh,
I've tried to dig deeper, and I guess it's just, yeah, I mean, I wasn't that hungry. And he really looks at eating as something he only does if he feels it's absolutely necessary,
fair, fair.
which is probably, I don't think that's necessarily unhealthy. It might
No.
be in the US where we have an obesity problem. It's probably a good mindset to have, not just, okay, we have 3 meals and we need to eat 3 meals. I mean, if you're not hungry, perhaps you can miss one. Again,
Well,
not a medical professional here.
we might have to cut this whole episode because we're giving crazy advice. No, but you yourself, you don't eat dinner, but it's not because you forget.
Yeah.
Like
Oh, I did not forget.
you do not forget.
I did not forget. Like last night, I ended up making this concoction protein fruit bowl thing that I had. because I was just so hungry. I'm like,
You're
I'm gonna
just
eat something.
okay.
Yeah, even though I had a massive breakfast and a lunch and some snacks, but
I'm guessing you worked out after work.
didn't work out.
You didn't work out yesterday. Okay.
Didn't work out yesterday.
Didn't work
Yeah,
out. Just a hungry boy.
just a hungry boy. And I'm watching my weight, and I noticed my weight it went down a little bit, but still in the range that is normal. So not too worried about it. But yeah, I usually will not eat dinner, but if I'm really hungry, I'll have something, you know.
Do you change the schedule over the weekends? Or are weekends kind of because I know a lot of the times when we do have it, the weekends, at least for me, are like the time off, which doesn't
Yeah.
really make much sense the more that I think about it. But do you do you do that? Are
Yeah,
weekends
there's
time
a
off?
common 80/20 rule that helps
Um,
people. I have a buddy who he is super regimented for spurts at a time. And then I'll talk to him and he'll say, I haven't worked out for 2 months, just out of nowhere. And I want to say it's because he's almost too regimented and
mm,
it's not sustainable.
mm,
He's got a schedule that's not sustainable. And so goes, when something goes awry, so to speak, he will just abandon the plan. So he now has adopted an 80/20, and I think it's been much better for him. It's been more sustainable, and it's probably overall net better in the long run, where and during the week he's regimented, follows his schedule, follows his protocol, and then on the weekend he sort of lets loose a little bit. I mean, not as strict of a diet, doesn't work out, but then
mm.
picks it back up again on Monday. For me personally, no, I'm kind of
I'm the exception.
the exception, not the rule. No, I try to make my regimen or protocol in a way in which I feel as if I can carry it out. I don't want to make
Um,
it too stringent to where I can't carry it out, but I feel as if it's working and it's pretty good right now.
okay. It would carry
Yeah.
through your weekend. And your weekdays, that probably goes to the fact that your weekends are probably not so different than your weekdays, meaning you're not staying up on the weekends until 3 in the morning that changes your whole schedule on the next day. You're doing much different things during the weekends than you're doing during the week, but the time slots probably remain the same. The times you wake up probably don't differ that much. The times you go to bed probably don't differ that much. You let me know if I'm wrong, but that's what I'm assuming based on.
No, no, that's spot on. I think with the going out culture and doing that quite a bit, that's how your regimen or your
Yeah,
days can change easy. I mean, if you're going to
easy.
bed way after, then everything is going to change. But I do try to keep the bedtime the same. However, I will make exceptions to that. Maybe
Yeah.
the occasional go out or the occasional UFC fight, like this past weekend. There was a
Mm,
UFC fight. So I
mm.
tried to get solid sleep Friday night so that I was okay with the Saturday night staying up a little bit later and watching the
Okay.
UFC fights. But yeah, I mean, I might be a little bit too regimented for some people. Some people are like, live your life, do whatever. But I am a proponent of if you can, keep the same bedtime.
Because no, it is crazy. Like I'm thinking about it right now that the only thing that would get someone to not follow whatever makes them feel good during the week on the weekend is the fact that they are not going to bed at the same time or around the same time that they do during the weekend. Therefore, they are a different person the next day because they died in a different way the previous night. They didn't live the same life. So they're different on the weekend. And that if you were to change one variable, that would be the only variable that would make it so you keep the routine that you have going through the week. And that's just to say, we're assuming in a world that this is what you want, right? If someone's like, I can't freaking keep my routines, like it's pissing me off. One could say, well, what time are you going to bed on the weekends? And that would probably answer that. That would probably answer the question. So far.
Yeah, I know. That's interesting. And then also the fact that there are some people's biology that don't jive well with the typical Monday through Friday schedule. And so they're sort of doing something unnatural during the week, which is going to bed early when maybe their chronotype, like we talked about a little bit ago,
Mm.
is late night. And so they get the best quality of the sleep when they do actually go to bed later. I mean, this is not everyone, but this is a subset of society. So on the weekend, maybe it's actually better for them to go to bed a little bit later.
Can't
Again,
you,
I think that this is probably a really small subset of people, but it definitely is applicable to some people.
can't you change the, I don't know, I forget how Huberman calls it, the cardiac rhythm or your rhythmic,
Circadian rhythm.
your circadian rhythm in like you, that is something that you can change, but that's different from the chronotype that we're talking about here.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Do you know what I'm
That
saying?
is a good question. I don't know. I just know, yeah, basically can start your circadian rhythm by getting sunlight exposure.
Right.
So perhaps that's something that you can change, and maybe that changes your chronotype. Me and my friends were wondering, can you change your chronotype? Is it just basically saying, is Aura basically saying, hey, based on these past 2 months, we've seen your schedule, and based on the schedule, you are late morning. And maybe if you were in that 2 months going to bed super early and waking up super early, would they think you're an early morning, or is it deeper than that?
I mean, I would freaking assume so, because what the hell other information were they taking my blood samples? Like what else? What else do they need? Because that's the only thing they got. Yes, they gotta have your heartbeat, but that's what I would assume. They're taking the past months and saying you've gone to bed at this time, so you go to bed it's late. That's you. So they're drawing circles around this. Oh my God. You can't escape it.
Well, yeah, maybe they're also seeing, oh, you went to bed 30% of the time you went to bed early, 30% of the time you went to bed later, and maybe the last 40% you went to bed at a normal time, neither early or late, and your quality of sleep was the best on average when you went to bed early. You're an early chronotype.
Mm,
I'm
mm,
not sure,
mm,
but I want to say it's more than just what you were doing. I think there's another factor, which is quality.
mm. Like when you're getting to your deep sleep, when your heart rate is resting, when your heartbeat is the lowest on whatever time of the day.
Because then they show you that. Say you slept from this time to this time, and it overlapped with your ideal timing. And when maybe you hit that, I guess, yeah, it just overlapped with your ideal timing. I don't really look at that feature often, but I have seen that feature where it's almost it looks like a clock, and
Yeah,
then they have things that they have basically different intervals over that clock. I don't know
I've
if
seen
you've
that.
seen that.
I've seen it with my eyes. I've seen it. I've definitely seen it
Yeah,
before.
I don't really look at it either. I'm just like, all right, well,
Definitely know what you're talking. Yeah,
yeah,
whole
it it,
time.
it is interesting. Um, but anyway, what's going on in the this is a big gear switch.
Kind of.
What's going on in the dating life? What
Ooh,
is the dating landscape? How are you looking at it, especially in Paris and
man,
Betty, in the city of love, perhaps?
man. You have
At least the romantics, it's definitely the romantic city?
It's a great question. And if I were to go back 2 years and I knew that I was in Paris, if I were to pick myself 2 years ago and I knew that in 2 years I was going to be in Paris, I would be like, oh my God, you're going to have so much to say to this question because you're going to be in Paris and you're going to be single. But this is the least qualified question that I can possibly answer. This is the least qualified topic that I can possibly say anything on. When I tell you that my dating life doesn't exist, it's not even an understatement. It's not an understatement. It's just true. It's just true. I mean, okay, so when I got here at the beginning of January, I downloaded Tinder. I think I went on a date with one girl from Tinder. We went on about 4 dates, which was cool because new city, that was a great practice for my French too, because she didn't speak French very well, or she didn't speak English very well. So it was really funny because most of the conversation is based on body language and jokes and looking each other in the eyes and not really know what to say. So it is fun in that way. And she was very cool. But essentially, in short, she was leaving. She was from France, but she was leaving to go to another city come April. And it was about February. And I was really in a time of life where I was starting to get, this is the problem with routine. I was starting to get my routines going in the new city. So I was really feeling myself. And I was like, she doesn't really fit in the, she doesn't really fit in where we're trying to go right now. But cool experience. We went to a couple bars, yada yada. Um, I went on a couple of dates and met the girl that I met at a New Year's party. She was cool, but yeah, it didn't really fit in the system. Didn't really fit. And what else? Girl came to visit me from she didn't sorry, let me rephrase. She didn't come to visit me. She came to visit Paris. I happened to be in Paris.
Yeah.
Hold on,
Yeah.
let me slow
Slight,
myself down.
slight correction there.
Let me slow myself down. She came to visit Paris. I saw her. The cool part is that the dates are very beautiful, no matter what you do, because the city is so visually pleasing that the memories of these dates just a lot. Either the lighting is cool or the Eiffel Tower is just always there sticking out at some point wherever you are. We had with this girl that I'm talking about, we got a little baguette, we had a little picnic, we watched the sunset all by the Eiffel Tower on the river. We went for a walk and just talked. Just great vibes. She lives in Greece. So all this to say that yeah, it's one of those things that I've never been happier to give the answer that I am not qualified to even have this
Well, the
discussion.
thing
You
is,
know,
you say
is
you're
that
not
weird?
qualified, and then you go on to talk about all the dates
Okay,
that
fine.
you've been on.
Okay, okay, fine. But that
I
is
thought you had not ever been on a date. That's what you made it sound like.
that's
You
fair.
you definitely have some things to say on this.
I do have something to say. That's true. I think the last couple months, it's like I'm skewed. The data for the last couple months suggests so strongly that I don't have anything to say on this. So my mind is like, oh yeah, I don't have anything to say. But if you look at the first couple months, sure, I do have some some words, some experience. But yeah, it's interesting. Um, it's
Yeah.
interesting.
So I resonate with what you said about routine
Mm,
and can this person fit in the routine?
mm.
What was it? Was it just the first lady wasn't fitting, or maybe she was the second? I couldn't tell. The first one you talked about,
The
but
first one, yeah, I'll talk about.
yeah, in the timeline, she was probably the second one, right?
She was well played.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So was it that? you just had to go out of your routine a little bit and just go and meet her, or was there something else different about her that really made it to where you couldn't follow your routine?
Okay. I realized, I made it sound like, no, I made it sound like I'm a bit more of a stickler than I am. I don't think, it's not that she wasn't part of my routine, meaning that, sorry, I have to go to the gym from 8 to 9 and you want to go grab a drink and I'm just not able to make that work for you. It wasn't that sort of situation. It wasn't that sort of situation. It was, I'm entering a new season right now where I'm finding so much joy in spending time with myself
Oh.
that it's almost like the investment of time. I wasn't seeing how that would be beneficial going forward based on the experience that we had. And it's one of those things where you were talking about in one of the latest episodes that we had about how you are a believer that you can build a relationship over time and you might not have those sparks, those feelings at first. I tend to disagree usually with that. And by the fourth time, if this person was someone that, was going to be special with me, there's no, there's not even, that's not even running through my brain. She doesn't fit. Like, we're not even, that's not even going. I
Hmm.
would have, I feel as though I would have already known, yeah, of course, she fits. Doesn't matter. I don't know how, I don't know why exactly, but she fits. And so we would make that work. We would make time for that, I guess, is all that to say. So, but then again, my mom is always like, why do you give people a chance? Like, why do you, you're never gonna find someone if you just, just be hissy with that. I'm like, well, you're not wrong. You're not wrong, but I just don't know if you're right.
You're young. You're
Young,
young.
young.
You're not in a rush. At least
Oh,
I don't think you should be. Yeah, that is interesting. That is interesting. Do you, it seems as if you just didn't maybe like her that much. And then also she was gonna go to another city, so it was gonna be tough from the get-go.
it was gonna be tough from the get-go in that case. Yeah. And she was cool. Like, she was cool. But then again, kind of as when you had the idea for the name of the podcast, No Downside Podcast, boom, that's the one. Everything else is off the table. That is kind of also what I expect. This is where it might not be helpful, right? This is where it might be a limiting belief. But I think that sort of enthusiasm and excitement at some point early in the relationship, just that spark is important for me to be like, I'm excited to see you. I'm excited that we're going on this next date, going to the movie, really doing whatever. I also, something that just came up in my head is during that time, I wanted to stop drinking. I wanted to stop smoking. So I was in the process of trying a lot of new things for myself. So I didn't want the extra, I don't know if distractions is the right word, but extra variables added on top.
Hmm.
That now I think I would actually be more open to going on the date because I have more evidence that I can stick with the extra variables on top, you know, that these variables are part of my environment now. And so I wouldn't be if like I'm going on a date and my girl is smoking a cig, right? As they do a lot here. And she's like, you want one? I'm not gonna be like, yeah, yeah, yeah. Like, I'll take one. Like, I'd be like, no, I don't smoke, but thank you, And very without making it a big deal at all, if that makes sense. So,
Yeah, that makes sense.
mm,
That's really interesting because I never dated when I was as into health as I am now. And I guess I wouldn't want to smoke. I wouldn't want to drink a lot, that's for sure. And so what does your options look like? I mean, you could still do a lot. I think the classic is go to a bar, go get a drink, go out together. At least, correct me if I'm wrong, you would know more than me, but
yeah,
based on what I've been hearing, going and getting a drink is really common.
yes,
The coffee shop, and we talked about this a little bit, the coffee shop, the go to the park picnic, those are probably things that I would rather lean into. And I suppose you are leaning into those types of dates as well.
yes, yes,
Or at
yes.
least now maybe you would.
Going to the movies,
Mm,
going to the park now that it's getting warm outside too. Yeah, doing things that I like to do, I think, and it would be nice to have someone else join, and ideally they like to do that too. Would be would be the best. Would be ideal.
yeah, but I guess cigs in Europe, I mean, those go together
Those are
like
tough.
peanut butter and
Like peanut
jelly.
butter and jelly. And I don't have certain like thresholds is not the right word. I don't have a criteria that like if they do this, then no, it's out of the question. I don't have that. But it is true that as I find my ideal lifestyle, I would say, or as I find the ideal way that I'd like to live, and that's always going to be changing, but just as my world gets a little bit smaller in a lot of ways in terms of the things that I want and the things that I choose to do, then I think I will be at a better spot to go out on a date and say, hey, and present myself in a way that is like, this is usually what I do. And this is usually how I eat or whatever, or what I like to do without it being a point of shame or embarrassment or feeling insecure about that and being on, yeah, this is what I'm trying, this is what I'm doing, or I'm doing an experiment with myself. And it's kind of fucking weird, but yeah, it's what I like to do, you know?
Hmm.
Yeah. But in one of those seasons, we're definitely not in a rush. Now, if I am to be completely honest with you on this and myself, if I if my subconscious was speaking right now and I were to get out all the variables on the table for me to be able to say I'm not focused on a relationship or finding a partner or any of that sort, it would be it'd be like, well, maybe you're still into your ex-girlfriend. That's what that guy would ask.
Damn.
Yeah, that's what he would curveball,
Wow. I did
curveball.
not expect that. I did not
Yeah,
expect that.
out of left
Okay.
field. Yeah.
So you think you might be?
Well, I'll tell you what.
This is a public. So if you're watching this, ex-girlfriend, let me just
She won't be.
say
She won't. She
she's
won't be.
doing better
Maybe
things.
one day. Maybe one day. Um, so small part, if you're watching this, you're gonna have to go back to episode 3, where it's the Omen in Paris. And I was telling you the story of this gentleman that I met on the bridge. What I left out of that story is we were talking about relationship, and he was like, are you seeing anyone? And my answer was, no, not seeing anyone right now. I had a girlfriend. We did it for 5 years, but we broke up 3 years ago, which is relevant, but it's also not a relevant thing to bring up at all.
No,
At all, okay, right?
not
Am I
really.
not
Not
really
really.
at all? It's like, you seen anyone? Well, no, but what do you mean? Well, no.
What do you mean? Well, no.
Oh
Yeah.
my God.
So did he make you think about that twice, or did you think about that twice?
Well, ah, I'm thinking if I should just lay it out on the table here. And then he was like, he's like, you're still in love with her, aren't you? He said that directly after I said that. And I
Holy
was like,
shit.
what made you say that? He was like, I just, and I was like, okay, anyways.
Anyways, next topic. Oh my gosh. But
So that
the
happened.
the relationship, okay, so but the relationship ended mutually, right?
I did. Yeah. I was actually, yeah, ended mutually, but it wouldn't have, it wouldn't have ended if that's actually a dumb thing to say. I have no idea. But I was the person who proposed for it to end, only to add more drama to what I'm saying right now. I say that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And rightfully so. And rightfully so. So it's not a matter of, the cool part is I found it to be kind of cool because it's not a matter of regret in any way, shape, imaginary. The thing that we talked about as well, this omen from Australia, is that your first love. We talked about this thing of your first love. It's always, it always kind of lingers and always there. And he was sharing his stories and his experience with first love, how he communicated with her long time after they broke up, yada yada yada. And yeah, so I don't, not because of what he said, but just saying in general, I don't view it as just like, oh, like we need to, I don't know, we need to shift our life around, or we're so confused. It's like, I think it's possible. It's very possible that there are unresolved feelings in that situation because I don't have a because, but it's very possible. And what I was saying was the relationship that I've developed with myself over the past 3 years has been phenomenal. And I wouldn't trade that for anything else in the world. And so, and he was like, yeah, and that's what happens. What happens when when you go your own way. So, yeah, it's just life, isn't it? Just life.
Yeah, that's fascinating. That is fascinating because you wouldn't change it if you could.
I wouldn't change it if I could. No. And I only know it, right? The story will only be revealed in hindsight in the future. I'll be like, oh yeah. Or I'll be like, oh no. You know?
Hmm.
And I'm not saying what I think I could question here is like, well, if you know, you should go after her, you should do all these things, you should, right? If someone were to tell me that, I'd be like, I hear you. I'd be like, I hear you. But I'm sure when I feel that pull to be so strong, I don't know, right? Like my current existence would be an unhappy one if that pull was so strong. I would know. I would know. So that's how I guess I'm feeling it or I'm thinking about it. But I could
Yeah,
be
yeah.
wrong. Yeah.
Let's continue this. Let's continue this.
Okay. I can't believe this is going on the pod, to be honest. We might have to we might have to cut that too. I'm not
Cut it
gonna
out.
lie.
You're you're in deep thought thinking about was it a mistake mentioning this on the pod? And then also your ex-girlfriend. Well, the thing is, I really look at Sorry, do you want to add one more thing? Please go
I,
on
wa-
because you were talking.
I wanted to add something. So this look that I had when the camera opened up, this was a, I'm about to hedge myself right now and
As you
say,
should.
as I
Well,
should, I'm gonna hedge.
actually, unless you have conviction, then you go all in on what you believe.
Well, I'm still gonna hedge
Okay.
as a smart student of the market. No, what was I gonna hedge with? I think I thought about that I was gonna hedge and say, oh, and say I could also, this could also be a case of me not having a substantial relationship after that first love. And so in moments of, maybe feeling lonely sometimes or questioning my life situation, that comes up because that's a safety net and just past experience of feeling comfortable that my mind is kind of going to and gravitating to hedged,
Hedge, hedge place.
hedged, hedged
Well,
place.
I do think that there's some merit to that. I know you kind of
Mm,
made a joke with the hedge, but I do really think that there's merit to that because even when I think of the people that I know and I'm close with who've had long-term relationships, not quite 5 years. 5 years is really long, but for a couple of years, and these are my high school friends, right? Because I have enough data to go back into high school. They have been in other relationships since then. And it's funny because you think
mm,
there used to be this silly thing that people in high school did, or even a little bit after high school, which is, oh, you're a relationship person. Oh, you're not a relationship person. Yeah, the circles and categorizing, even though those could be completely untrue. For you with a 5 year relationship, it is a little bit astounding that you haven't had another relationship
mm.
because based on that in and of itself, you would think, oh, he might be someone who enjoys relationships because he was in one for so long and he did
So
enjoy
true.
it. But you haven't been in another relationship. I do think definitely when you're in another relationship and it's good, the feelings of comfort and the feelings that you have about that first relationship can completely change. And I was listening to someone talk about this recently, which was after his long-term relationship with his girlfriend, when they broke up, he had these negative feelings towards her, like, oh my gosh, why did she waste my time? Why did she not love me the same way I loved her? And just when he would think about the relationship, it would be negative. But then he got into a new relationship, found his wife, married her, and now he says when he reflects on that relationship, he doesn't think about the negative parts. He just thinks about it being a relationship where he was able to grow, where he was able to learn,
Mhm.
that no animosity towards her, but his mindset has completely shifted because now he's
Mm,
in a new relationship that's a good relationship, right? If it was a bad relationship, perhaps the outcome would be different. But if you can get into another good relationship, I do think your outlook and your perspective will change.
mm. That is,
What do you think
with
about that?
echoing that, I think that is the Australian guy was also echoing the same thing as he got married and had his kid. So I can see a lot of truth in that. I also was just thinking about off topic that I left a part of the accidentally story that I also went to Morocco with a girl back in February. That that was probably the girl that I should have started talking about because that was she probably had I had the biggest chance of having feelings for that girl out of any of the ones that I talked about. So I left her out. But There was a reason why I got that. I
The
promise.
same
I
guy who said
promise.
he's not qualified to speak on
I
dating.
promise. There was a
Oh, I went
reason
to
why I got that
Morocco with a woman, actually. Totally forgot about that. There's just been so I can't keep track of all of them. That's the same guy
Um,
who said he wasn't qualified. That's hilarious. You also, before going to Paris, there was the Italian lady, right?
oh
Who
yes,
you
and
were you were
OD, well done.
dating.
OD, well done. That was why I was gonna bring her up as well. That was yes. For it was very short lived, and it's gonna sound kind of weird. It was very short lived, about a month and a half, but it was very strong in the sense we hung out a lot of times and we had a strong connection. So that was, yeah, I would say the woman that I had the most feelings for since my ex-girlfriend for sure. And during that time, yeah, it's true that during the time that I was with this girl, I was not really thinking about that. So I don't know. It's all, yeah, it's all to play for. It's all to see. Hmm.
Yeah, it's interesting. What about Hinge?
Off, yeah, Hinge, yeah.
Because I've heard better success stories from Hinge than I have from Tinder.
For sure. And I'm in the same camp. I've never really, I think I entered Tinder post the hype phase of Tinder. So I've dabbled, but it was already when it was established that this application is really not being used that much and very much only for hookup culture in the US. I think abroad it doesn't have that same stigma. Like in Europe, Tinder is completely fine. And
Mm.
Hinge is used, but I would say equally to Tinder. There's no like, oh, Tinder? Like there's no that questioning that I think in the US it comes of it. But I don't mind Hinge. Hinge is how I met the Italian girl, but I'll be surprised if I use the application again. I'd be surprised if I use the
Whoa,
application
why
again.
is that?
Yeah. Mhm. To be honest, at a stage of at a stage of confidence and exploration and openness and extrovertedness, I guess, that I know I'm going to be in environments to meet people. I know I'm going to do things that allow me to meet people, you know? So maybe that's just the season in life that I'm in, and that's why I'm saying that. But I don't see it that I will feel the need again to be like, let's hop on Hinge. Then again, maybe I move to Spain in September, and I'm like, let's go on Hinge again, you know? Never know.
Yeah, but
So
as of right
don't,
now, but you're still on Tinder.
no, sorry, so sorry. That's just to
No,
say,
any of the apps.
yeah, any of the applications.
Any of the
Correct.
apps.
Any of
That
them.
is interesting. So,
And to give a little asterisk, sorry,
yeah.
Tinder, I really only dabbled a couple of times. I think I've downloaded in the past when I was maybe traveling around Europe during some vacation in 2022 and 2023, but I haven't really used Tinder that much.
Okay.
Anyway,
Yeah. Look, a little disclosure there. Um,
there's just these little details that I'm
do
just adding
you?
for absolutely no reason.
No,
So go on,
it's
go on.
good. It's good. It gives us a better understanding of the overall picture.
I'm in the back of
Because
you right now.
before
I'm
you
trying
said
to.
that, I was thinking Esok's been on Tinder for since the end of his first relationship.
They were judging me. You were
Hmm.
judging me. Everybody was judging me. So I had
Well,
to.
the thing is, so it sounds as if you look at meeting someone on the apps as different, maybe worse than just meeting them in person and throughout your day-to-day life, or Is that a
No,
false
that is a false
understanding?
statement because I look at it as I would say, okay, if we were to break things down in terms of priorities in your life and what you do based on priorities, I would say this is a season where I'm not prioritizing relationship, new relationship. I'm actually prioritizing a lot existing relationships. And I would say that's a broad band. When I say new relationships, I mean romantic ones and not romantic ones. That is not something that I'm prioritizing. But there might be a season in my life where I say, you know what? I feel like I like where I am with this. I like where I am with this. I want to prioritize finding a new relationship. And that's where I think Hinge is fantastic.
Hmm.
And going on dates is super. I think it's great as a way, as a new environment, new person, a new way to present yourself, a new way to listen to a stranger, you learn stuff about yourself going on dates for sure. So I'm a big proponent of that, of meeting new people in general and going on dates is just a way for meeting new people. So yeah, nothing on Hinge or Tinder personally disclosed. Um, but I think yeah, if there's a season in your life where you are prioritizing relationships and meeting someone, Hinge is it's perfect. Do it.
Yeah.
Do it. Yeah, do it. Um, but how about yourself, Mr. OD? I we talked about a little bit about you and your relationship in the last episode, but I wanted to know, okay, when I think about the lifestyle that you live, and on top of that, you have a fantastic, healthy relationship, I'm like, man, I think there's somewhere in me that tells me that a relationship can be a stifling thing to me doing what I want to do in terms of my priorities, and it's gonna sound a little bit selfish, but doing what I like to do on my own time. And it's not that I haven't experienced a relationship, but I haven't experienced a relationship being an adult, you know, being
Hmm.
a proper adult or feeling like a proper adult. So how have you managed to do that? Is there maybe there is a marriage of her wanting to live a similar lifestyle that you live, and so that jives pretty well, or maybe she's just super supportive of you and what you like to do and the things that you like to prioritize. How do you how have you managed to marry that so well? And maybe it's not, maybe it's not as rosy as it seems, and maybe it is very challenging. I don't know.
Yeah. You bring up something interesting because my brother mentioned that he doesn't think you should get married when you're young, when you're in your early 20s, because people change so much and you never know if you're going to still be compatible after all of those changes. It's an interesting concept.
Mm,
Now, what I'll say on the other side of that is with Mary and I, we have changed so much from when we started dating over 4 years ago to now. We have just been fortunate enough to be changing in a way that is similar and in a way that's still and arguably more compatible. So yeah, it's interesting because humans do change, and if you are changing in a way that's no longer compatible, it's something that you're going to have to to talk about. Something that you can't
Mhm.
shy away from. You have to lean into that and see if it still makes sense. What I also will say is, yeah, compromising is a thing. Do you want to be, do you want, how bad do you want this person in your life still? You know? How bad do you want this person in your life? Is there, and we talked about this a little bit, is there something in the relationship that doesn't allow me to do the things I want to do anymore? Right?
Mhm.
Is it not easy? Mary and I used to always say this, is it easy or is it difficult? Is it difficult for me to be in this relationship? Do I always feel as if I'm being restrained from doing the things that I want to do?
Mhm.
Those are the types of questions that you have to ask yourself. And, or I think that you don't have to ask yourself those. I think they'll just come up if you are feeling restrained. Mary and I had talked about this, and it was just basically the entire relationship has been so easy and so fluid to where me moving to Denver was the first big challenge. Now it's not as easy, right? It's now more difficult just because we have to buy the flights. Other than that, I mean, it's still a relationship that doesn't make me feel as if, oh, I need to call her. Oh, I need to FaceTime.
Mhm.
It's,
Mhm.
oh, I'm going in my car on the way home from work. I'm calling because I want to talk to her. Right. So it's still not something that feels difficult to do. And I think like I've had conversation with my friend, one of my friends just had broke up with his girlfriend. And it was that exact reason. It was hard. It was hard to stay in it for whatever reason. If it was to go having to see her, having to talk to her, having to FaceTime her, having to do things with her, it just felt as if he wasn't able to do the things he wanted to do. And yeah, if you're having those feelings, right, then you definitely have to reevaluate whether or not you're in the right relationship. I will also say I am so lucky about Mary because she is utterly and incredibly easygoing. That helps a ton. I know myself now, and I couldn't be with someone who's not as easygoing as Mary is. Right?
Mhm.
We kind of have these conversations. Oh, you know, what when we look at other relationships, what does the compatibility look like? What does the match look like? Are they a good match? And we're never qualified to say if other relationship is a good match or not. But yeah, for me and Mary, her easygoingness is absolutely integral to the relationship. And I couldn't be with someone who wasn't as easygoing as Mary, if that makes sense.
And and when you say easygoing, is it are you saying that she's flexible, she's open to new things, new conversation, she's open to you two making mistakes, or what do you mean by easygoing?
Yeah, I would say flexible and overly understanding.
Understanding.
Yeah, can understand my perspective, even if it is sometimes irrational. And sometimes I
Mm,
have to catch myself because, especially with someone who's so easygoing, I want to make sure I'm not being too irrational. And she'll draw the line, of course,
mm,
but she draws a line at a point where basically wouldn't. Like I would, and I would think others wouldn't either. Like I wouldn't think that she would be okay with this, this, and this, but her line is much lower than mine, when it comes to like what you're willing to put up with and what you're willing to understand. So it's an amazing quality and it's helpful for her, especially keeping her cool and staying rational herself. I think when you're having it translates to a lot of parts in life, and it's something that
Mm,
I admire of her because people that are able to basically people that have that threshold lower, I think there's pros and cons, but a big pro is when someone is maybe perhaps being a little bit rude, you are still calm and collected because you're what you're willing to put up with is a little bit it's you're willing to put up with a little bit more. And for someone like me, if someone might be the same amount of rude, I might turn into an emotional wreck and then, be rude back and it blows up. But she's able to, and she still recognizes it, right? It's not as if like she's oblivious to someone being rude, right? She's
no.
recognizing you're rude, but she,
People confuse that as a weakness.
hmm
A lot of people make that mistake and they're like, oh, I can run this person over. And it's like, you can't because one, you're not getting under this person's skin because they're watching. They know what's going on. And when it's time to draw the line, they will draw the line. Yeah.
yeah,
Uh-uh.
it's interesting. Yeah, people do look at that as weakness. And it's really it can be a massive strength. It can be a massive strength because you are able to navigate situations with a clear, rational head that others can't, right? Because now you've passed my threshold and now I'm not thinking straight anymore. Now I'm just like, you're a fucking asshole. And it's over with. And I think sometimes she can admire that side of me too, of where, you know, not a pushover, not going to speak up. But oftentimes I think it's more of a negative, more of a detriment, or can be, than being able to stay calm and collected in those situations and just move a little bit more elegantly.
Hmm. Hmm.
Like, okay, yep, you're rude. I'll get through this conversation. I've noted it, and perhaps I won't interact with you as much, or perhaps I will just navigate the situation a little bit differently, as opposed to me. Perhaps I will
Hmm.
say something I regret, or do have a blow up type of an interaction. I want to say you lean more towards her than the blowing up, more emotional person.
I tend to lean more toward her. I do think they both have their positives. And if you can, I think it's a skill to be able to pull the levers of what you need in a certain time, right? Because I'm thinking this is a little bit off track, but I'm thinking when it comes to leadership, you want warmth and you want competence as well. You want to be a warm leader and a competent leader. And it's stretching a bit, but let's assume that Mary leans more on the warmth side scale and you lean more on the competent, really stretching a little bit, but in terms of the two polars, really stretching it, no, stretching it because you are also a very warm person, and that's why I think you're a great leader because you have both the things. And I don't know about Mary, but I'm sure she's a very competent person as well. But all that to say is yes, I consider myself to be a warm person, but I think in certain situations I can turn up the competence for, you know, drawing the line, making sure you're respecting certain environments. If you're a leader, of course, in any situations, people need to listen to you and hear you. And for someone to listen to you and hear you and follow instructions and learn from you, they need to be able to have a bond with you from the warmth perspective, but you need to be able to say things how they are, right? So
Yeah. That's
Yeah,
that's interesting.
I was thinking about that because this is a little bit off topic, but yesterday I snapped for the first time at one of the girls.
Oh my gosh.
I snapped,
I'm
yeah.
sure it was justified.
It was justified. It was definitely justified. But yeah, it was. I'll tell the story real quick. We are at football practice, and one of the twins wants to get
Football, by the way, everyone.
football. Oh yeah, excuse me, more of
For all
America.
the for all
Sorry,
the Americans. It's soccer, what you guys call soccer. No one else
soccer,
calls it soccer, by the way.
soccer, bro. So at European football practice, and one of the twins wanted to get a gift for the other one, and I knew this, but we have guitar practice to be at a certain time, so we're constrained for time. And she's like, hold this, and she passed me her bag, and she starts running off. This was like as we were mid conversation, so no time for questions, and she starts running off. So me and her sister are like, where did she just go? And I knew what she was trying to get, but I didn't know where it was. And we're like, okay, I guess we're gonna wait for her at the metro station. So we go to the metro station, and we're waiting for her. 5 minutes go by.
How far is the metro
10,
station?
the metro station is about 5 minutes from that spot where she started to run off. It's not that far. But in my head, I'm like, she knows where the metro station is. She knows we have to go somewhere and we have to take the metro. So she's going to meet us back at the metro station. And five minutes go by at the metro station. 10 minutes go by. I'm waiting with her sister. And I'm starting to be like, okay, where is she at? I'm starting to get worried because, well, I care about her and she's my responsibility. And her sister's like, where's my sister? I'm like, I have no idea. And so I start to think back of where she might be. And I say, okay, let's try to go find her. And so we're walking, and her sister is like, where's she go? She's not mad at me. She's just like, my sister, like, where is she? And I'm like, I'm starting to be like, okay, like, we're gonna find her, but where is she? And we walk for a couple minutes, and the longer we walk, the longer I'm like, where is she? And then we see her across the street. She's got a big thing of cotton candy, and she's walking casually as if we have nowhere to be, and she's eating her cotton candy with a smile on her face. And I see her, and this is no thought comes in my head. And this is when Isak gets serious, and not often. But I go, what are you doing? That is unacceptable. Unacceptable. And I walk off. And I say this quite loudly from across the street. And there are people walking by. So this is like stern, stern. And I walk off. And at this point, I'm like in my body. I can feel everything. And I say to myself, damn, that boy was heated. That boy was heated to myself as I'm walking. And I'm kind of like smiling to myself at this point. This is like 10 seconds after this has happened. I'm like, yo, he was heated.
Oh my gosh. Oh my
And,
goodness.
and we get to the metro station. At this point, I'm a couple of steps, a couple of blocks away. And it's okay. At this point, we're starting back some small chit chat, but with the girl that I had told this to, we're not really communicating that much. And at this point, I'm calming down. I'm like, but yeah. Um, and she goes to guitar practice. And now I'm hanging out with her sister. And her sister tells me, she was like, that was not cool what you said to my sister.
Oh,
And
seriously?
yeah, yeah, yeah. So that was not like cool. It was scary. It was scary, she said. And my first, as I'm like mid sentence about to say, but you were also worried. I was, you know, as I was about to react to what she just said, I stopped for a second. I was like, I understand. I understand. And we stopped talking about it for that point, and then 10 minutes later, it came up. I started to write about it because the girl was doing her homework, so I started to write a little bit in my journal. And we talked about it again, and she was like, "I don't know how it came up, but either I brought it up or she brought it up." And I was explaining to her that I was worried. I reacted that way that I was worried, and she was like, "I would have reacted the same way, but the next time I would have first asked if she was okay, and then you could have been like, that was not acceptable, or don't do that again, and then communicated what you wanted to communicate." And I heard that, and I was like, "You're right. If my worry was that I was worried for safety, the first thing that I should have asked her was, 'Are you okay?' The first thing that I should have asked her was, 'Are you safe?' It had to be like
I
in the
don't
range of
know,
you're safe."
man. I don't know. She's walking with a smile on her face, lollygagging,
Kind of,
loafing around, eating cotton candy. I think you could see she was okay, which is why you got mad because you were like, you are okay. You were completely fine. And you just had no regard for our time and what we were trying to do. But you
yes.
think it was more, you think you still should have asked her if she was okay when you could almost tell she was okay?
Do you know why? Because in hindsight, she told me, I found out later, but when she came back from the guitar, she told me that she tried to call her parents because she didn't know where we were. So she was must have been waiting for us at some point. To be fair, I found that information out after I had this feeling of, you're right, I should have been like, she was okay. But so she was, although it didn't seem like it when I saw her, in hindsight, there was a moment in time where in her mind she was like, I don't know where my sister is, and I don't know where Isak
Mm.
is either. So I don't know. But when she told me that, it shifted my mindset from she needs to apologize to me to I need to apologize to her. And so she came out of the guitar, and kids, I mean, they forget shit. It's just emotions run high and low, high and low, high and low. Next, they move on, next trade. So she didn't really care by the time she got out of the guitar. She was like limping because something was hurting. And I was like, You okay?" And I was like, "Hey, come here. I want to tell you something." And, we're close. So she gave me a big hug. So I was like, "I'm sorry for raising my voice at you." She was like, "It's all right. I felt good." I was worried. And I explained to her, I was worried because I didn't know where you were. And she was like, and I told her, I was like, "Next time, Clem, you need to tell me where you're going before you go somewhere because I am responsible for you." And she was like, "Yeah, I understand." And then that was that. That was kind of the climax of the situation. So it didn't end up being a big deal, but it was a new experience for me, a new parenting experience really, because I had to put on the parent hat for for a moment. So usually it's the big brother hat that I play, but I had to play parent hat there for a second.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's how this situation was handled. I completely get what you're saying though.
Well, but so the other thing is the only other questionable thing from an outsider
Yeah,
would be you and the sister's decision to leave once the other sister left
true.
to go to the metro. I would say that's it, but maybe you guys do this all the time and it's the normal thing, right? I don't know. Maybe that's the case.
Yeah.
From an outsider looking in, just hearing this story, I'd be like, but why did you guys go to the metro?
Why did you wait? Yeah. I would say, yeah, like you said, it is something that we do every time. And we were
Mm.
on the way to the metro in the first place. It's not like we were at the park sitting down and then she just ran off. It's not like we were in a seated position. We were walking to the metro where she ran off and said, "Hold this," and went. So we kept on walking. But yeah, in hindsight, we could have stayed there. Yeah.
Yeah, but
That's also true.
it's not anything she's unfamiliar with.
No, no. So,
So when you
uh,
got back, did it come up to the parents?
no, 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 like nothing, no. And it's because, I mean, not that worst thing have happened. Yeah, worst things have happened in terms of maybe this was one where I was directly involved because I put on the parent hat. But I mean, I've stopped fights between the sister. The sister has been me up. I've stopped fights between her and her dad. So it's
Beating
not.
you up?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because she gets quite angry. It's not personal, but she can. She's learning how to control her anger. I would say. Not that I'm like, yeah, that's fine. But she, especially when she's playing sports, if things don't go her way while she's playing sports, she can get very angry.
Mm.
And yeah, I'm thinking of an example right now that I was playing in goal. We're playing European football, and I was playing in goal. And she shot the ball, and I stopped the ball, and the ball hit her in the face. To a kid, that's your fault. They don't in kid math brain, bro. That is your fault. So she's like, you
Oh
yeah,
my gosh.
yeah.
So you're probably really impressive to them when it comes to football.
I mean, sure. When it comes to, they're quite easily impressed with anything, to be completely honest with you.
Seriously?
I mean, any, they're really into sports. So any athletic, we play a lot of basketball and football are the things that are the things that we play the most. But yeah, anyways,
I didn't know basketball was becoming so popular. I mean, they have some good French players and they got Wembanyama.
they got one banana, they got one but yeah, man, kids,
Kids, goodness gracious. Yeah, that's gonna be tough.
that's kind of tough. I also, we're not gonna have time to talk about it in this episode, but something that pencil in for the next one is I have this theory on parenting in the U.S. versus Europe. I'm starting to make a I guess a theory or an opinion on parenting styles in America, parenting styles in Europe, from living with this French family and from teaching French kids as well. And I know we talked about values last episode, and it's just interesting that in America, most of the parenting styles are decided based on the value of the parent. Wow. In Europe, maybe I'm generalizing, but let's say call it in France, the parenting style is decided based on what the society deems as good education. So it's wrapped. And I'm coming to the conclusion, maybe I'm overgeneralizing, that this good education style is being used all over the country. And that is why, in generally, Americans make more weird people than Europeans. Done. To be continued.
Make a lot of weird people. Mic drop.
In the good way, in the best way possible, and in the worst way possible. That's why America has more innovation. That's why America has sometimes less and weird things happening in the world. But anyways,
Here we have it, folks.
for the next episode. All right, dude.
All right, man.
Love.
Cheers.
See you next time.